Hi, today we'll be learning about the origins of the United States government. We will be talking about some of the most influential documents from the past and how they influenced the framers into forming the government we know today. So first we'll start with the Magna Carta, which was written in 1215. It was the government was a contract with the people. It was a shared power between a monarchy and the nobles. The king had to protect the rights of the nobles, and the nobles had to support the king. It also established rule of law, which is where the king had to obey the laws just like the nobles. There were no special expectations made for the king, and it's a lot like what we see today with our president, where he's not held to a different standard. He's not above the law. He still has to follow the laws like everyone else. And how it influenced our government. It served to lay the foundation for Parliament in Great Britain, and we'll talk about this a little later. But Parliament has two houses, and this is how the framers decided to have our two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. It tried to establish checks on the king's powers, which is where we got the idea of checks and balances, and having the three different branches of our government, legislative, judicial, and executive, and how they all have certain checks put in place for one another, so one can't get more powerful. It also established due process of law, where no man or woman should be deprived of certain natural rights. This shows up in the U.S. Constitution, where no one can be deprived of life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness. Now on to Parliament, which was established in 1688. This was a representative form of government, which further limited the powers of the king. It was developed after the Glorious Revolution of 1866, and it shifted the balance of power away from the monarch and more to the people. So in Parliament, it's bipartisan. They have two houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. And the framers saw this and thought it was a good idea to have the bicameral system, meaning we have two branches of our legislature, so the Senate and the House of Representatives, where they work together to create laws, but they're their own separate thing. So if one house thinks a law is not just, it won't be passed. And then we have the English Bill of Rights in 1689. This is a strong shift of power again away from the monarchy. It gives Englishmen rights beyond nobles. How it influences our government. It's the Declaration of Rights, so freedom of speech, ban cruel and unusual punishment, freedom of election. This was for the Parliament of Great Britain, but it gives us the rights and freedoms that we know today. The Mayflower Compact of 1620 is the first governing document of the Plymouth colony. The settlers decided to follow a set of rules in order to keep peace and order. This influences our government. Brought about the idea of self-government, and the settlers had to agree on certain laws and offices and constitutions, so people weren't thrown into chaos and there was an order for things. And then Common Sense in 1776 was written by Thomas Paine. It challenged Great Britain's authority in the colonies, spoke to the common people. It was the first piece of writing that openly called independence for Great Britain, so this is really where we got the idea of we could rule ourselves. It pushed people to wanting to have a say in government. People were no longer satisfied with having the government make decisions for them, and they wanted to have a say in what people did. And then we come to the Declaration of Independence, 1776. This declared the 13 colonies independent from Great Britain. It also gave a list of grievances the colonies had with Great Britain and what they thought they were doing wrong. And then the purpose of government is to secure people's rights, and government gets its power from the people and can't just do whatever it wants. And then we have the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, created by the Northwest Territory. It was the first organized territory of the United States, and it prohibited slavery in this territory. This set the precedent that the federal government would be in charge of the expansion of the West and admitting new states. This contradicts the Articles of Confederation because it gave sovereignty to each individual state. If it stayed like this, each state could have expanded by themselves and they wouldn't have had to follow the rules of the federal government because, as we know, the Articles of Confederation were very weak in enforcing laws.